You're a no-name brand. Who are you guys? You can't charge those kind of prices. No one knows you. And what was a super proud moment was in the following year, so 14 months into operating, when we got nominated for South African and African Transfer Pricing Firm of the Year, 14, 15, somewhere around there, 16 months into operation.
Good day, ladies and gentlemen, and a warm welcome to the Parallels podcast brought to you by Africa Scotland Business Network. We're an international business network that connects Africa to Scotland and back, and increasingly with a global membership to the world. We've got a fantastic episode coming up with one of our member company leaders, Craig Bain of vanBain Transfer Pricing Company. A warm welcome to the show, Craig. How are you doing?
Thank you very much. Doing great.
It's great to have Craig and Arlene from vanBain Placements, the subsidiary business, is with us in the studio today. Craig, I remember when you first became a member of Africa Scotland Business Network, and I gave you a courtesy phone call to introduce myself, and you said to me, "Hi, I'm Craig, my dad's from Scotland, and I'm the MD of vanBain Transfer Pricing Company." And I just remember that moment very significantly because I totally pretended that I knew what transfer pricing was. And I think I did a good job pretending.
Definitely.
And then I quickly went to Google what transfer pricing was. And then I've obviously got to know about it, having you and your fantastic team in Africa Scotland Business Network over the past couple of years. But for people who are either listening or watching episode 6 of the Parallels podcast here today, and maybe also pretending that they know what transfer pricing is, can you just give a quick introduction, Craig?
Absolutely. So transfer pricing has actually been one of the most complicated and simplest topics that I've been involved in since leaving varsity. So I originally was, or am, I guess, an attorney. Did legal articles at a firm called Denise Rates, which is now Norton Rose, and then left the legal practice specialization and wanted to do something slightly different, and stumbled across transfer pricing myself, having never even heard of it before. You don't learn about it in university. You hear about it every now and again in commerce, but it's an entire specialization on its own. And in a nutshell, what we do is assist companies with the support for their cross-border related party transactions. So within a group of companies, they transact with one another cross-border, and they will either ask us for advice up front as to what those prices should be, or what the margin earned on those transactions should be, or after the fact, when it's happened already, we get involved in the documentation side of supporting those transactions. And why someone like a SARS or any other revenue authority would care about it is by transacting within a group, there's the opportunity for shifting profits within the group. And where would you ideally like to shift your profits? To a low tax jurisdiction. And the idea with transfer pricing is that you actually, unlike the common view out there sometimes, which is that transfer pricing helps companies shift profit. In fact, it's the opposite, which is transfer pricing actually assists revenue authorities determine whether, we call it arm's length in nature, determine that it was not shifting profits. And in fact, it was as if done between third parties, unrelated to one another. And in a nutshell, I'd probably say that transfer pricing, if you want to get to the root of transfer pricing, all you got to ask yourself is, how would companies interact with one another if they were not part of the same group? And that is a pure transfer pricing arm's length transaction.
Craig, when you joined Africa Scotland Business Network, it was just yourself and AJ who manages the Johannesburg office. And fast forward a couple of years and you're now a team of 11. Do you want to talk about how you have grown and what you think the success factors have been?
Yeah, that's actually a great question around the success factors. So thankfully, we have been successful. We originally started with 4 of us. Ellen is still with us today. Cherokee has moved on to live in Ireland, and we're still in contact today, which is fantastic. And we've now grown to a team of 9 in total.
Okay.
But if you count yourself and maybe Nicola, then we're 11 in total. But so 9 in total. How the growth happened. So we started vanBain transfer pricing and doing just transfer pricing services for mostly South African headquartered companies with operations in other African countries as well as across the world. We then started getting quite a lot of business from headquartered companies outside of South Africa with operations in South Africa. And so that grew steadily, hiring new people year on year. We're actually only 3 years in now, and we now have a second office in Mauritius. AJ actually heads up that office now. He lives in Mauritius, spends some time in Joburg still, but is mostly in Mauritius. And we've also hired a manager in Mauritius, Khalid. And so the team continues to grow. We do the full spectrum of, from advisory to compliance to even controversy, which is basically disputes with revenue authorities. And I would say there are a couple of reasons, maybe one step back as to why we started vanBain.
Sure.
So we had push and pull factors. Importantly, I think it's more relevant focusing on the pull factors, which was clients actually asking us, would we consider doing a boutique practice, or more actually clients asking, we want a boutique practice rather than us specifically. Now, clearly there was a want and a need, and we had the ability to fulfill that need. And so we then started vanBain transfer pricing. We had quite a big base between AJ and myself, having worked at various firms, old school connections, university connections, etc., in either financial manager or CFO type roles that would be clients for ourselves. So we had a good start. We then started winning a lot of work away from other firms for a number of reasons. One, I think we were quite competitive on pricing. We were definitely not cheap, but we were more cost efficient than some of the, say, bigger firms, but offering the exact same service at the same level with, dare I say, better customer service. And so we had the ability to then expand the team and start leveraging or doing roles at the right level, which I think has been a critical part of our expansion, which is in the beginning when it was just even 3 of us, and AJ and myself were still involved in the day-to-day drafting of documents, actually the doing. And we've now been able to get to a point where we are winning work, managing client relationships, doing client calls, ensuring we're on those initial setups, the initial project management discussions. And then really we got a really great team of managers and consultants that can run with it, which allows us to keep winning work, topping up that top funnel. Because that funnel that we have spoken about quite a lot, if you're a small team, and I think a lot of startups find this, is the troughs and the peaks of work in a year. You win work, you do the work. While you're doing the work, you're not winning new work. And then when you finish that work, there's now a trough of no work, which then you try to win more work. And so it's a horrible cycle you find yourself in. And you've got to try to get out of it as quickly as possible to ensure that at least one of you is, and that's what I'm saying, AJ and myself, is chasing work the whole time to be able to keep topping up that funnel. So you have a bit of more evening out of revenue during a year, because the other key part of it is cash flow. And if you can't manage your cash flow, you can have all the signed engagements in the world. If you don't have cash coming into your bank account, it's a huge issue. And, as 2 individuals, we were very fortunate, first of all, to have each other. It wasn't just one business person starting a business with a team that was responsible for everything. We had each other, which is a huge benefit. And even today, we split responsibilities really well. We do function as independent businesses with Mauritius and South Africa, but we obviously assist each other on projects. We cross-sell where there's opportunities, and there will be a lot of, almost like brainstorming between us on projects to ensure that we give that client a considered approach or considered solution where it's not just Craig's opinion or AJ's opinion. I feel like I'm speaking about ourselves quite a lot, but I actually mean the team
right
more broadly. And the likes of an Ellen and Khalid are instrumental in those discussions given their technical input, because at some point you realize as a senior person within transfer pricing that the younger guys actually have a completely different view on how you've historically done something. And in fact, it might not be the answer because transfer pricing is very gray, but it might be an alternative which could suit a particular client. That comes up all the time, which is fantastic.
I can relate to that. Obviously, we're in completely different industries. Yep. I also have a business partner of 13 years. Yep. Nicola probably deserves a medal for putting up with me for that long. But we bring different things to the game, right? We share values, a sense of humor. I'm just going to call it, we're both quite good, wholesome girls, but we're also very different. And then I also relate to you with what you've just said about the younger generation. For us in Africa Scotland Business Network, our team is very diverse. Diversity of thought is super important to us. We have Clint here, who's, are you 26? 27? We also have Deebu Singh, who sits in Port Elizabeth. She's 25. And that injection of the younger generational energy has been super important for our network. So to go back to vanBain transfer pricing, Craig, you're not just an MD and a business partner. You are also a father and a family man.
Yep.
And I'm going to pose a question to you that's not in the brief.
Okay.
I can maybe alarm bells here, but this is a question that's often posed to women. So I'm going to do something quite contemporary and ask you, how do you juggle managing family life and an expanding business?
I think it's a critical question because, Arlene and I were actually speaking, funny enough, about this on the drive today, which is times have changed. Mm-hmm. If I think about my grandparents' generation, not only were they at the same company for their entire lives, but generally it was, the man worked and the wife was the mother at home. And that just is not the case anymore. And so Tam, my wife, she works full-time as well. And we've got 2 boys, both very demanding on time and commitments and everything. And so, on the question about how do we juggle it, one being, I think, hopefully Tam would agree, very supportive partners to one another, a little bit like in the business, dividing and conquering, not feeling like it's everyone or one person's entire role to be the parent. That I can see would be a challenge. For myself, I obviously do work really long hours, but my hours, because we're flexible and because it's our own business and because we work mostly from home, although I do travel quite a bit, I have the flexibility around when I work. And I think that is also been quite a big key. So basically between, say, 4 and 7 in the afternoon, I'm not online, I'm not available, I'm not on calls, I'm not on anything. And that's because, our house is in Hermanus. And we either are swimming or we're at the beach, or we're up, taking a walk in the mountain, or we're actually just swimming in the pool, something at home. But between those 3 hours, it's no work. And we originally both AJ and I were quick to just accept any meeting, any engagement. We will jump on a call with the US at 2 a.m. because we need the work. That was the case in the year 1. We've transitioned now to a point where we are a bit more confident in what we offer, and also the reality that we're not heart surgeons, that the world will not end if I don't jump on a call at 5 on a Monday when actually spending time with the boys is more important. So it's easier said than done. It's easier in my position, absolutely. If I look back when I was working at the big audit firms, that is difficult. You are in the office later in the evening. Even if you're working from home, you often need to be on calls. It's not as easy in every industry or every job to find that balance. I feel a little bit, though, like we've created that culture within vanBain, which is one of, we work hard, but we are very much focused on giving people the flexibility to do what they not just need to do, but want to do in their own time. So we're very much deliverable based.
Yeah.
This kind of moving away slightly from
Not
your
at
question.
all.
But one of the first things we did when we started vanBain was said no timesheets. For 15 years of my life, I'd done timesheets. That's all I knew was timesheets. And the first thing we did when we started vanBain, no timesheets ever. We will not introduce timesheets no matter what we do, because we don't want guys to be putting time on a sheet saying they did the work. We're deliverable based. If I need something done and you're going to get me a document by a certain time, then if you need to do something else during the day, do it, and we'll get the deliverable by the agreed time. You just got to manage your own time then. And what the challenge with it, not maybe the challenge with it, but the concern that some leaders might have with it is, oh, but what happens if they just go and sit on the beach? Then you've hired the wrong people and it's your fault anyway. So it's a very different mindset. It's a little scary in the beginning because you are trusting people. But admittedly, 3 years in, it has worked brilliantly. Our employees, although I don't even like the word employee really, and I don't know what other word to use. Guys say assets or individual, whatever the word guys use. They're more than that, and I think they are the business. They're absolutely
humans.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So no, assets. They're on the balance sheet.
I can also relate to that because we have a similar culture, don't we, Clint? And I think it comes from a little bit of trauma from working in corporate. I used to get in trouble. I'm going to say this in Scottish. I don't even know if this is a Scottish word, but I used to get a row from my boss, for being 5 minutes late. And I'm like, I'm one of the hardest workers in here. Yeah. Just give me that time. And I was getting to the office via public transport at the time. So I knew, one, I had to become my own boss. And two, if I ever had a team one day, and I have teams now across both of my businesses, I'm not going to inflict something on them that wore me thin when I was a human asset. Yes. So yeah, I can completely relate. And the culture, it builds a culture of trust. And if that doesn't work for some people, they're going to fall away anyway. Yep. So great conversations here with Craig Bain from vanBain, transfer pricing agency in South Africa and Mauritius. While you're watching and listening, ladies and gentlemen, please subscribe. We're on YouTube and Spotify. Please also follow us on Instagram at the Parallels Podcast. It'd be great to have your support. Next question, Craig. Yep. What has been a significant achievement for you as a leader and for vanBain?
Sure. So it's an interesting one because I think my wife Tam tells me this more than anyone else, which is pause and look what you've achieved and feel proud of what you've achieved. Because I still, and every day I feel it, is that stress. Not really stress, but more the hunger. That's a good word. The hunger for the next. The hunger for achieving, and what is that end goal? The post keeps moving, and in fact, I watched a Oscar acceptance speech by Matthew McConaughey. I don't know if you saw it at all. And in his Oscar, he wins Best Actor, and he says someone asked him who's his role model, and he said when he was 25, his role model was his 35-year-old self. And when he was 35, his role model was his 45-year-old self. And that goalpost kept moving. So you'll never achieve it because it's always moving, but you're always chasing it. But I think the one, circling back on the start of the conversation, which is pausing to appreciate what we have achieved. And we've achieved a lot. Growing the business during the height of COVID. So we started 1 January 21, and it was the height of COVID. 10 days later, our son, Robbie, was born. And it was, a really, really stressful first 6 months. You didn't have revenue coming in the door. We had a team. We had salaries we needed to pay. That starting period I think I'm almost most proud of how we navigated that part, not pushing stress down on the team. I feel like that was a big part of my life previously, which was there's certain stresses at certain levels within a business, and there's no reason that needs to get pushed down onto junior staff. And that was in a lot of my positions that I had been in previously. And I think I'm proud of the fact that we didn't do that, even though how stressful it was in the beginning when we literally had no cash. We were fighting for work. We were being told in the market by competitors, maybe, and new people that didn't know us, oh, but you're a no-name brand. Who are you guys? You can't charge those kind of prices. No one knows you. And what was a super proud moment was in the following year, so 14 months into operating, when we got nominated for South African and African Transfer Pricing Firm of the Year, 14, 15, somewhere around there, 16 months into operation. So that was an exceptionally proud moment. Then second year in a row, we also got nominated. Now, look, we're getting ranked against some of the biggest transfer pricing firms in the world. We're a team of now 9 or 11, depending who we count. But these teams are upwards of 40, 50, sometimes even 100 people overseas. These teams are massive. They're big global brands. And so those are all exceptionally proud moments. The other, some of the other proud ones, opening the Mauritian office, being the first South African transfer pricing firm to expand into another jurisdiction. I hope to have some exciting news going forward around Mauritius, the Mauritian operation as well. I think AJ will share that at some point, hopefully with a broader audience. We'll see. I think maybe just the culture we've created. So I can circle back on, I would say, absolutely the most proud thing I am about vanBain. The proudest thing is the culture we've created. And I don't know if it was on a podcast that I had seen with you or whether it was in a YouTube video that I had watched on another. It might have even been Nick from Feldskin, who I don't know where I've heard this, but whether it was yourself or Nick or from the YouTube guys, all of you have the same cultural beliefs. So I think it could have come from anyone, and we feel the same way, which is a culture is not generated by putting words on a wall. If you have integrity and whatever other things on a wall, that doesn't generate a culture. Your daily actions generate a culture. And that hit hard for whoever said it to me, which was, we don't have words on a wall, but I really do feel like on a daily basis, we act in the way that we want the culture to be. And you see that even in the team that we have every day. You're proud of how they act in some really tough situations. Something as simple as a nasty client email. Now, that's tricky to deal with, but the team deals with it with the values that are part of the culture. And that's a very proud moment, yeah.
I think it was Nick from Feldskin. He's actually joined the network, and it just goes to emphasize ASBN is full of member companies and leaders who are very different, but there's an ethos that binds us all, and that is great spirit, generous spirit, hard workers, positive, optimistic outlook for Africa, connection, making it happen. I often tell people there's a mindset in ASBN, and it comes back to our values, our culture, and our leadership. Yeah. Hope you're subscribing. Craig, you're going to jump in there. Go for it. Go for it. This is your time. This is your time, please.
I actually forget and it's because it's the most recent proud moment we've had, which is getting involved in a second business, which is not transfer pricing.
I was just going to ask you about placements. You read my mind.
Okay. I see. Great Scottish minds. Yeah. And what you were saying actually earlier, right in the beginning, was when we first met, what our actual connection was Stirling, Bridge of Allen, that region, which was obviously where my father was born and where you're from.
So Bridge of Allen's the posh bit?
My dad wasn't from Bridge of Allen.
I'm from Menstrie. I was born in Stirling, but I'm from Menstrie, the not so posh bit, but kinda sometimes a little bit middle class, but yeah.
Okay.
It is the same area.
Okay. And that was the initial connection and how a funny story.
Your name like Craig Bain. Like,
Yep.
that is more Scottish than my blood.
So I'm Craig Thomas Bain,
Oh, wow.
which
Okay.
is pretty Scottish.
That is very
Yeah,
Scottish.
Craig being Crag, rock
That's
in
right.
Gaelic, right?
That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to call my son Craig,
Okay.
but there's quite a lot of Craigs, and Craig and Claire might have been a tongue twister. So I call my son Caelan, which
Okay.
is also a Scottish Gaelic name.
Yep.
And it means internal warrior. There you
Okay.
go. Fact of the day. You all sleep better at night knowing that. So you're talking to us about vanBain placements.
Correct.
Please tell us more.
Again, a great story. So Arlene over there and myself, we know each other from when I worked as an attorney. Back in the day, did my legal articles at Denise Rates, and I think a lot of the guys listening would know of Denise Rates in Maud Street, and even here in Cape Town before it became Norton Rose, and I think now even Norton Rose Fulbright. And we worked together there for a number of years. I completed legal articles, didn't want to continue as a lawyer, like a practicing attorney, but wanted to utilize business degrees and get more into business, which full circle it ended up happening, but it was a really strange road that I took. And so fast forward 15 odd years. Yeah, fast forward about 15 years, I think, roughly. And Thomas, my son, and myself, we're getting takeaway pizzas at the brewery in Hermanus. And in walks Arlene.
No way.
Who says to me, Craig, 15 years later, I'm actually here in Hermanus myself. And, she was involved in still working, but remotely, as a lot of people are post-COVID. And we started chatting, and we started just catching up on life and people that we knew together. And what had happened was, from the transfer pricing business, we had a lot of clients that were asking us, don't we know a financial manager? Don't we know a financial director? And we would introduce guys. At some point, we were starting to think, well, is there something here, business-wise, an opportunity? And Arlene was in that space, in that recruitment type space. And so, we started chatting, and we said, let's do something here. So we started vanBain placements. At first, a lot of people had the question, why from a transfer pricing business to a placement business? You would think that stuff like maybe other taxes, like corporate tax or VAT. But we've been very clear from the start. We wanted the transfer pricing business to be a boutique only transfer pricing business, which it has remained and has worked incredibly well for both our clients and the intermediary firms that do refer work to us. And so placements actually made a lot of sense, although sounded really strange. I think the big difference that we've experienced from dealing with recruiters and then also, setting out our own strategy for this business is a lot of the recruitment firms that we had dealt with, and from the feedback that we've gotten from clients, is that they get dumped with a bunch of CVs. They send a job spec, they get 20, 50 CVs, and they almost feel like, has anyone actually even reviewed these? Or has anyone really taken the time to deep dive into our culture, our wants, to determine who would be a good fit for us? Not just someone that can actually do the job, but would they be a good fit for the role? And I think the general approach appears anyway to be, here's the CVs, and we need to get them back, need to get jobs in, jobs out, and that's it. And so with ourselves, we are very much focused on a more boutique, high service level type placement business. Some guys call it headhunting. We don't really want to even get into headhunting, because then it's almost like you specifically go after one person, which is not the case either. We understand the role. We really, really focus on understanding the culture of the business. Thankfully, a lot of the roles that we're currently placing are with historic clients of the transfer pricing business, although we are starting to pick up new roles that we are placing for completely new clients that we've never dealt with before. Then the critical part there is that it's actually AJ, myself, and Arlene that sit with the director, the CEO, the HR, head of HR or HR manager, and understand the culture of the business, understand what they're looking for. So it's not just a pure service, filling a gap. It's very much a long-term investment. They rather see it like that. And that way we can take on fewer roles, but ensure that the service level is much higher. And it's been working so far. In fact, we're getting great feedback from clients that we have been working with. The challenge that we have is to ensure that the roles that we are taking on are ones that we can add value to. We'll place someone in a financial manager role, and the client will come back and say, "Oh, can't you just do a PA?" Which is, we can, but we'd rather not, because we, in those particular cases, the value that we add is not going to be the same as the value we would add on a financial manager or an attorney or a head of legal or a CFO. These kind of roles, we really add value. We'll do the other ones if we can do it as a combination type deal, but generally we try and not do them. And clients are actually surprisingly really receptive to the point, which is, wow, you guys said no to a job spec. That's amazing. We've never had that before, but we appreciate it, because what you're telling us is, don't waste your time or money. You can use us for it, but we're going to be slightly, less cost efficient on that particular role, because those aren't our typical ones we go after, or that we're good at placing. And so, yeah, I think that's basically it.
Craig, you've achieved so much, and we have a wee audience behind the scenes here. Can we give Craig a round of applause?
Yeah!
And to your team, and to AJ and everyone across vanBain Transfer Pricing and vanBain Placements, talking about behind the scenes, ladies and gentlemen. This podcast is produced in production partnership with Africa Scotland Business Network member Clyde Broadcast in Glasgow. Please subscribe on YouTube or Spotify, and to meet more great leaders like Craig Bain here in the studio today, check out Africa Scotland Business Network. It's africascotland.network. Craig, what excites you about working in Africa?
Probably two things: opportunities and challenges. So the opportunities are endless. One of the big things that actually happened when we left employment at big corporates, which we anticipated to some extent, but we didn't anticipate the scale of it, was the opportunities that present themselves. We started a transfer pricing business. We currently now also have a placement business. We are involved in some other, I'd say, ventures, but not on a day-to-day basis. Our focus really is on the transfer pricing and the placement business. But you wouldn't believe, or maybe you would believe, just how many opportunities get presented to you, or if you even have a conversation with someone. And actually having chats with a lot of the African Scottish Business Network members, ASBN for short.
South Africans love
acronyms.
Their acronyms, eh? Love them.
Wait for transfer pricing, TP.
Oh, okay.
And there's a lot of acronyms within transfer pricing as well, tons. And so, yeah, acronyms are a big one in SA and very much in transfer pricing. But there's just so much opportunity, both in South Africa and in our neighboring countries, Botswana, Zambia, Zim even. Now, the challenge is going to be local regulations and to some extent currency. But if you can find a way around that, and that's where the challenges part come in. And that's what is exciting. It's not easy, but that's why it's also exciting. And that's why also the rewards are often greater, because the challenges are often bigger. And we see that on a daily basis.
Well, we sure know who we're going to come to and rely on when Africa Scotland Business Network takes on the world with global offices. Craig, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on episode 6 of the Parallels podcast. Great. Have a great day, and thanks to you, the viewers and listeners, for being with us in this fantastic show today.